This is the Municipality of Anchorage Planning and Zoning Commission for April 2nd, 2012 at 6:35 p.m. May I have the roll call, please, from the Secretary?
Connie Yoshimura.
Here.
Bruce Phelps. Stacy Dean.
Here.
Perry Parks.
Here.
Dana Pruz.
Here.
Richard Wilson.
Here.
Ray Hickle.
Here.
Peter Mulcahy.
Here, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. We have a quorum. We have minutes for Monday, February 13th, March 5th, 12th, and 19th. Do I have a motion for approval, please? Ms. Dean, and seconded by Commissioner Wilson. Is there any objections to the minutes? Any changes, corrections to the minutes? Madam Secretary?
Yes, with regard to the March 5th minutes, I laid on the table a correction this evening, deleting also present on behalf of the petitioners were Barbara Simpson Kraft and Paul Doherty. That was should have been deleted out of there. I apologize.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else? Is there any objection to approval of the minutes? Seeing and hearing none, those minutes are approved. Vice Chair Parks, will you do the special order of business and disclosures, please?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Deans?
No.
Commissioner Hickle?
No.
Commissioner Pruz?
No.
Commissioner Ishimura?
Wait. I guess I do. I can't vote on the resolutions because I wasn't here.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair Parks, in the matter of case 2012-037, the Municipality of Anchorage AMET's amendment to the TIP, I have previously recused myself in regards to those matters and will not be participating in that case.
Anything else?
No.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilson?
No, nothing.
Commissioner McKay?
None, sir.
And I have none.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to the consent agenda, items 1A, B, C, D, items 2, 3, and 4A. May I have a motion for approval? Moved by Commissioner Wilson and a second by Ms. Dean. Let's see, I think now I ask if there's anyone that wants to pull any of the resolutions.
Madam Chair, I'd like to pull D4A, please.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anything else that wishes to be pulled for the consent agenda? All right, seeing and hearing none, those items that have not been pulled are approved. Item D4A now for discussion. Thank you, Commissioner Parks. Ms. Ferguson, I think this is your case, is that correct? I'm sorry, no, Ms. Iverson, that is your case. I have a couple of questions. As it relates to the items that are on page 38 of our packet, items 5, 6, 7, and 8, I'm wondering if, indeed, the Planning Department has had any sort of physical inspection of this development.
Madam Chair,
yes.
Each building is approved administratively. The site plan and elevations are reviewed and approved to conform to the original master plan that was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission in 2006. And after they're approved, the land use review does go out and inspect to make sure that the development is per the site plan. Regarding the landscaping, that was also reviewed. It was reviewed and then inspected after the clearing took place. It's my understanding.
Are there any provisions for sort of an annual inspection? Is there a bond, for example, for this landscaping? I just have to say that Takatnu Commons, from my layman's perspective, is quite a disappointment in terms of its vast parking lot areas. I have been told that there are circulation problems as it relates to ADA for veterans trying to go across the streets and into the various small restaurants as opposed to eating at the hospital. And really, the landscaping appears to be quite inadequate. And so, therefore, I'm wondering if it's been installed, properly installed, if it's being maintained. You know, I understand the popularity of Takatnu Commons, but when I go to Takatnu Commons versus Glen Square, which has some really nice landscaping and very well maintained, it is a bit of a disappointment. And when I look at the name of the subdivision called Gateway, truly it is a gateway to our community. And as such, it doesn't appear to be very attractive. As far as shopping centers are concerned around the country, I would say this is one of the least enhanced as far as the site plan itself is concerned. So, so do we know whether or not indeed they did construction fencing, that there's no outdoor storage or parking of shipping containers in the areas of public parking except during site construction, whether or not they, cleared the entire site, whether or not they left any perimeter landscaping or replaced any. Is there any question, any comment that you, as a staff person, would like to make regarding these matters?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
When the site was initially cleared, apparently construction fencing wasn't used and the highway screening 50-foot wide was breached, and believe that there was a requirement to replace it, the lost landscaping. There was also quite a bit of discussion between one of the occupants, the first occupant, and staff in terms of visibility of their sign. And they wanted visibility from the highway. I'm not sure if that screening landscaping has been replaced, but any replacement would be much smaller trees than that which was removed. So that's what I know about the highway screening that was required to be maintained and not disturbed during the clearing. The way the site was cleared, they cleared the entire site rather than clearing as needed for their tenants. So the entire site was cleared with the first occupant. And of course they had to put in the utilities.
Yes.
And stormwater and AWW sewer and water and the electrical utilities. And there was also a said pond that had to be installed as part of the drainage improvements, and I believe it's on the east side of the property, and then there's one in the southeast corner, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So there was quite a bit of clearing with the initial development many years ago before there even was a tenant.
And was there a requirement to replace some of that clearing with new landscaping?
My understanding is at least the highway screening was required to be replaced. I defer to Sharon.
In terms of the highway screening landscaping,
It's a plat.
initially the landscape contractor had put in a lot of trees that after I went out to inspect, they were substandard material, and he had to remove all of it and get trees that would meet at least the code. And so he did do that. So he took out probably most of the trees that he'd put in and then replaced them with much better looking trees. But that's just for the highway screening. As for the parking lot itself, I think we have looked at it and determined that it does meet the original plan, I think for the most part. But unfortunately, when that plan came through, they only had to put as much landscaping as you see there today. But this has been Karen's project, but she can maybe double check to make sure that the landscaping has been put in. But we did look at it in years past to see. But yeah, it is short on landscaping. I mean, I think you're right. I think we don't disagree. It is one vast parking lot with very little landscaping in it.
Commissioner Pruz?
I'd like to see if we could entertain a motion to postpone this until such time that we get a report back from staff on landscaping, the conformity to the original site plan,
Okay.
with the questions answered.
Do we have a second? We have a second by Ms. Dean. Is there any objection to that motion? Seeing and hearing none, this case is postponed until the next available time, and we hope to have a report, and perhaps the petitioner's representative can come forward and address some of the issues that we have. Thank you at that time. Thank you very much. All right, moving on. No other unfinished business. We're into our regular agenda. And going to G1, case 2012-033, U.S. Government Indian Health Service, is the petitioner. May we hear from staff, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you mentioned, this is a rezone of a 4.2 acre tract from ROSL, which was implemented in 1985, to B3SL. The rezone to B3SL is requested in order to develop a parking structure with skywalks to adjoining medical buildings within the Tudor Center. The subject of this rezone is Tract A3 Tudor Center, and it's located north of East Tudor Road, east of Elmore Road, and west of Vance Drive. The site is occupied with a two-story office building located in the northeast corner of the property. The rest of the tract is developed with surface parking. Property to the east and west of this site is zoned ROSL. They have different special limitations because they were adopted at different times. The special limitations were adopted at different times in the history of the Tudor Center. To the north is PLI zoned land, and to the south, the hospital and all the property south of Tudor Center and Ambassador Drive is zoned B3. This site is identified as a major employment center and redevelopment mixed-use area per Anchorage 2020 land use policy map. In 1982, it was identified for residential use. It previously had been gone through some rezone requests to rezone it to industrial because there was since the 50s, there was excavation and brick-making industrial uses. Those disappeared in the 70s. Tudor Center is basically developed with medical services and office uses, largely occupied by social service and institutional uses, and the associated off-street parking. The existing special limitations are shown on page 5 of the packet. In addition to the hospital, the permitted uses are largely commercial in nature, with conditional use required for retail sale, dispensing, or serving of alcoholic beverages. The proposed special limitations include permitted uses that reflect the medical, social service, and institutional uses that have developed in the 27 years since the original rezoning in 1985 to ROSL. Now, this request does appear to meet the Anchorage 2020 policies. The rezone is compatible in scale with adjacent uses. The proposed use is accessory to the adjacent uses to provide parking and skywalks to the medical buildings that exist or are in the process of being developed on the site. It is a mixed-use development. Mixed-use development is encouraged within major employment centers. The characteristic of this major employment center, it is indeed a major employer. It is a compact development. New buildings are oriented to the street. This parking structure, if it is approved, is located at the far north end of the site, midway between the north property boundary. And parking structures are either to the side or this one as proposed behind the buildings. It is also pedestrian-oriented, and Tudor Lake Track is designated as an open space on the plat that created the Tudor Lake Tract. The UMed district does identify Tudor Center as a mix of institutional for the hospital tract and mixed commercial around the perimeter of the hospital. And the UMed plan does recommend that the existing zoning be unchanged for the Tudor Center. However, the existing special limitations reflect commercial uses, but they do not reflect the development that has actually occurred in the past 27 years on this site. The proposed special limitations are more compatible with the development of this property as basically a medical center that serves the entire state of Alaska. In reviewing the rezone petition, it really would not affect the environment. This is fully served by all public utilities. The property is including an on-site private storm drain system on Tract A3, but it does tie into a public storm drain system located in Ambassador Drive and Tudor Center Drive. Vehicular access to the site is by dedicated and constructed streets to municipal standards. There will not be an adverse impact on the land use patterns. As mentioned before, the parking garage as well as the skywalks are essentially accessory uses to the medical complex, and a proposed heliport is not going to, that is proposed in the special limitations, is not, will not set a precedent because the other two major hospitals also are served by a heliport, and a heliport would be very advantageous for people coming in for medical care on emergency basis from the outlying villages, and this is the community that this medical center is striving to serve. The effect of the amendment on the distribution of land uses, therefore, would be negligible. There was a revised department recommendations. I inadvertently failed to include in the staff write-up the permitted accessory uses and structures, and it was laid on the table tonight and also sent to you earlier today. That is the revised recommendation that the department is recommending. Approval of the request to rezone Tract A3 Tudor Center subdivision to B3SL, and with the following special limitations that were proposed by the petitioner. And that's, they're listed in full on this revised recommendation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, are there any questions from staff? Commissioner Cruz?
A couple things. With the conditional uses, you have heliport there. Would it be reasonable to have an approved departure and arrival corridor associated with this conditional use?
Madam Chair, Mr. Cruz, I assumed that any medevac would follow FAA regulations in approaching the hospital. Because I remember...
Well, they don't have that. Unless it's specifically drawn out. For instance, there is, for Providence, there's a specific arrival and departure corridor because of that the helicopter operations use, because of the density of the population and the relationship to the university system and the UMed district. And so at Alaska Regional, that hospital's at the Merrill Field. That's at an airport with published arrival and departure procedures. So this is a new heliport that's going to be coming into a fairly high density community area. And I was just curious because typically I would expect to see with a heliport as an approved use, an arrival or an approved arrival and departure procedure that take into effect the community around it.
Madam Chair, Mr. Cruz, I'm wondering if that would be, a heliport is a conditional use, and if that concern would be attached to an actual conditional use when the heliport comes before the commission as a conditional use rather than as part of the rezoning? I'm not as familiar with this as you are.
Yeah. So if I could clarify then for the matter for the commission that should there be an application for a heliport, it would require coming to the commission as a conditional use? Go ahead.
Madam
Thank
Chair, it's listed under conditional uses,
Okay.
and it would come forward to the commission for approval of that heliport. And I'm really asking the question of the more experienced commission members if that would be more appropriate to place as a condition on a conditional use rather than to enunciate it in the rezoning of the property.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think we're in agreement on that. That's a good suggestion.
With the conditional use, Madam Chair?
Yes. Yes.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions of staff from the commission? All right, let us hear from the petitioner then. You have 10 minutes, and please clearly state your name for the record, and if it's complicated, would you please spell it? Thank you.
Okay, my name is Kelly Leisman. That's Leseman, and I'm with the Indian Health Service here in Anchorage. Just to briefly touch on your question there, ANMC had basically anything north of Tudor's within controlled airspace, Anchorage controlled airspace. The only way that we could even apply for a conditional use would be with the FAA's permit. So, I mean, if we decide, and this has not been decided, it's just we want to include it in case it happens sometime in the future, we will have to go through the FAA, get all the proper permits and the air traffic patterns that we need to follow. And then that would be provided to the city in the conditional use permit. I don't know if I can add a whole lot other than what she had already said. I mean, we've got that whole area over there east of Burgaw and north of Tudor, almost all the way to Tudor Center, just a little bit east of Tudor Center Drive there, is pretty much the entire Alaska Native Medical Center campus. All the services that are provided there, either the hospital, Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium, South Central Foundation, Chugachmute. I think the only exception is one small building that's occupied by the State Child Welfare Department. Right now, the lot that we're looking at houses the Center for Disease Control, their Arctic Research Institute, and then the rest is surface parking. The Alaska Native Medical Center is expanding. Services are being provided, and more medical services are being expanded. And parking's getting tight, and so we would like to put that parking structure there in that lot just north of the hospital and the track A3, and extend a sky bridge so that pedestrians and particularly handicapped do not have to go across on the road, across the street. Well.
You have just over 8 minutes left. Are there any questions from the Commission? Commissioner Pruse.
Okay, on the heliport, the way it works is the FAA approves, you make application and the FAA approves the heliport, but they do not consider the community around. The only thing they look for is sight distance and obstacle clearance. And so the arrival and departure procedures, because of the density of the people that are there, would have to be worked in conjunction with either planning staff and the FAA or a group of people, because you can have two-way communication to air traffic control or the Merrill-Field Tower or Anchorage International Airport Tower, but they are no way going to dictate the arrival and departure into your landing pad based on the community around it.
They will do a disturbance impact, and that'll actually, this is be a federal project, and as part of the federal project, we're also subject to NEPA, National Environmental Protection Act, which also will include that assessment. But my understanding is that the FAA, when they do a traffic assessment, they also do noise impact.
Well, I just had one done 24 months ago, and they didn't do any of that.
Where at?
Ship Creek.
Okay, because I live on Flying Crown down South Anchorage, and they approach us about it all the time.
Yeah, no, the helicopter at Ship Creek, and they came and looked at the clearances around and the approach and the departures as far as any obstacles. If it made the minimum regulations. Now the community, the municipality is a different story, and that's why I would hope that the departure and the arrival corridors are delineated so that any helicopter pilot knows how to approach at say midnight or depart at 1 o'clock in the morning to go to leave the area, because two different people depart two different ways based on what they see fit as the safest way.
Is it the Ship Creek assessment? Is that a residential area?
No, it's commercial.
Okay.
Commercial, except for there's within a mile is Government Hill, and which is actually higher, which is an obstacle. So we have to be cognizant. But we're within the 3 miles of Merrill Field, and where you're at, I don't think you will be. But I just want to make sure that there wouldn't have a problem with the conditional use comes back, that a delineated departure and arrival corridor would be part of the conditional use permit.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Pruse. All right, so we've heard the petitioner. Is there anyone else who would like to testify? I need to read. I've forgotten. Okay. After the staff presentation is completed on public, the chair will ask for public testimony. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Commission Rules of Procedure. The petitioner, you have 10 minutes, and we have reserved 8 minutes for your rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, 5 minutes, and individuals, 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the Commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the Commission. An individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Planning and Zoning Commission takes. Appeals must be filed with the clerk's office within 20 days after the Planning and Zoning Commission's final decision. Any individual may request written findings from any commission decision within 7 days. Okay. We've heard from you. Now we will hear from the public. Is there anyone here who wishes to testify? Seeing and hearing no one, the public hearing is closed. What is the wish of the commission? Rebuttal? There's no rebuttal, I'm assuming. No. Okay. All right. What is the wish of the commission? May I have a motion? Commissioner Parks?
Under the case 20-012-033, the applicant, U.S. Government Indian Health Services, petitioned to rezone 4.2 acres tract from ROSL to Special Limitations B3SL, General Business District with limitations. I recommend that we make a motion that we approve this with the department's recommendations on page 15 with one addition, and that's under D2. It would be heliports must provide a takeoff and landing corridor before it's approved.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay. This would be under, the conditions would be under the revised department recommendations for this case, as was handed out prior to G1. And I would also make that change under C2, which would require the petitioner provide a takeoff and landing corridor for heliports if they so request.
Thank you very much. Motion has been seconded by Commissioner Mulcahy. Commissioner Mulcahy, do you have anything to add? Do you approve of the other condition? Okay. All right. Is there any objection to the motion? Findings of fact, please. Commissioner Parks.
Yes, ma'am. Under this particular case 2012-033, we find that it meets the recommended plan in the district, the UMed district. It is a mixed-use commercial classification. It meets Policy 10 under that mixed use. Policy 23, the characteristic of a major employment center, and it also meets the Anchorage 2020 plan. In addition to that, it meets the requirements under the land use patterns. The environment, the standards have been met for this, along with the transportation corridor and draining.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections? Seeing and hearing none, that is approved. Case 2012-033. Thank you very much. Moving on to case 2012-035. The petitioner is the Municipality of Anchorage. The request is rezoning to Girdwood Zoning District GIP. May we hear from the petitioner's representative? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a request to rezone the eastern one-third of First Edition Girdwood Town Site, Alaska Subdivision Tract A1, from GC5 to GIPP. This site is located on the southwest corner of Alyeska Highway and Egloff Drive in Girdwood. This rezone will affect only the eastern one-third of the tract. The Little Bears Playhouse, Glacier City Hall, and a portion of a tennis court are located on this portion of the tract. And the entire tract is owned by the municipality and managed by the Parks and Recreation Department. In 1984, the property was dedicated by the Assembly as a park, and this rezone to GIPP will reflect this dedication. The Girdwood Area Plan, Land Use Plan, split the subject parcel into two land use classifications. The western two-thirds were classified as park, and the eastern one-third was classified as public lands and institutions. Through the adoption of the Girdwood area-wide rezone in 2005, the site was incorrectly split zoned, and the western two-thirds were zoned GIPP and the eastern one-third to GC5. The Girdwood Board of Supervisors supports this rezone, and a resolution in support is included in the staff packet. Regarding the findings, the Planning and Zoning Commission must find that this rezone is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. The staff feels that this standard is met. The rezone is consistent with the Assembly Ordinance, which dedicated this parcel as parkland, and the Girdwood Area Plan, which designated the parcel as public lands and institutions. The Planning and Zoning Commission must also find that the rezone is in the best interest of the public, considering the following factors: that the effect of the development on the surrounding neighborhood, including the environment, transportation, public services, facilities, and land use patterns. The staff finds that regarding the environment, all uses are subject to the noise ordinance. All uses will be subject to the Clean Air Ordinance. The rezoning to GIPP will have no impact on transportation. Traffic engineering and transportation planning have no objection to the rezone request. Public utilities are available to this property. The rezone will not impact the school district. The rezone will not increase the demand for fire or police services. Regarding land use patterns, the subject property is surrounded by property zoned GIP and is currently owned by the municipality. This property is dedicated as parkland, and this rezone will reflect this dedication on the zoning map. Therefore, the department recommends approval of a rezone from GC5 to GIPP.
Thank you very much, Ms. Iverson. Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to testify on this matter? Oh. Questions from staff? I didn't see any. Well, the petitioner. Is there, I mean, this is the staff presentation, but is there a representative from the petitioner other than yourself, Ms. Iverson?
I am the representative this
All right,
evening.
that's what I thought. Thank you very much. All right, is there anyone here who wishes to testify for the public? Please come forward. Thank you.
Hi, John Gallup, Gallup. I'm a member of the Girdwood South Town Site Planning Committee, subcommittee of the Girdwood Board of Supervisors, and we've been dealing with this planning in this area for quite a while. The Planning Committee would also like to support the change of the zoning to GIP-P and to make it consistent with the status of it as a park. And we're prepared to continue with our planning efforts under the new classification.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there questions from the commission? I don't see any, so thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Anyone else at all? Seeing and hearing none, the public hearing is closed. What is the wish of the commission? Ms. Dean.
In the matter of 2012-035, I move to approve of the rezone of approximately 0.7 acres from GC5 to GIPP in Girdwood, with the department recommendations for approval listed on page 7. Just the recommendation that's on page 7.
Okay. Thank you very much. This motion has been seconded by Commissioner Parks. Is there any objection? Seeing and hearing none, that is approved. Moving on to case 2012.
I can do findings.
Could you just briefly give us some findings? Please?
Sure. On page 19 gives us some indication of the findings for this. The option was to rezone the eastern third of Tract A1 to GIP. The benefit of this option is that the entire dedicated park will be in the GIP district. The drawback is that until such time as the Little Bears Playhouse moves to a different location and the Glacier City Hall building is moved, demolished, or converted to a park-appropriate use, that portions of Tract A1 will continue to function in a commercial institution capacity, more closely related to other uses than in the GC5 district, not as a park.
Thank you very much for those findings. All right. That case has been approved. Moving on to case 2012-036, Lewin Park LLC. The request is a zoning conditional use for a private neighborhood community center. May I please have the staff report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Trailside Heights is a 66-unit multifamily residential housing development. The owner of the project will be Trailside Heights LLC, an entity controlled by Volunteers of America. The residential development focuses on aiding working families who earn less than 60% of median income. There are 46 three-bedroom units and 20 two-bedroom units. The property will be professionally managed, and a resident manager will live on site. The purpose of the clubhouse or recreation center is to provide a center for Trail Heights residents to participate in various activities that enhance their well-being. Some of these activities include financial literacy classes, adult and child tutoring, computer research for work and school, alcohol and drug counseling, and meetings, and scholastic book distributions. Leasing of rental units and tenant meetings will also occur in the recreation center. I had to remind myself many times during the review of this that I was reviewing just the recreation center, not the whole development. And you'll note that many of the review comments that came back from agencies really were talking about the whole development. And so I think it was hard for all of us just to concentrate on just the recreation center building itself, which is the subject of the conditional use. Page 7 and 8 are the conditions. And number 2 speaks to the uses that will be allowed in the recreation center, and they are limited just to residents of the development. And number 3 regards exterior lighting of the recreation center. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of staff from the commission members? Okay, seeing and hearing none, may we please hear from the petitioner's representative?
Madam Chairman and Commissioners, I'm Elaine Dahlgren. My last name is Dahlgren, and I'm the CEO at Volunteers of America, and we will be the owners of that facility when the entire complex is completed. There was an error in what the planning and zoning person read. There will be no substance abuse treatment in that community center. There will be education. We provide substance abuse treatment in our downtown offices, and that's where people would go for that. There will be meetings that have to do with the community of people living in Trailside Heights. And there will be an exercise room, laundry facilities, meeting space, a kitchen to serve food out of but not to cook, a couple classrooms, and a computer lab. And it will not be a facility or a building that's used by anyone other than the people who live in the complex. And that's all I have to say about it.
Are there questions of the petitioner? Mr. Representative? Well, I have a question to ask you. How do you go about regulating that when you say that it will only be used by the tenants in the development?
There will be 2 resident managers in the facility 40 hours a week, and there will also be a social service person that works for our office in that facility a certain number of hours of the week, and the building will be locked with a pass key for people who live in the facility to get in. It's going to have camera monitors, and it'll be pretty secure. it has to be very secure because it's a neighborhood for children, and we want it to be a safe place for kids to grow up, which means that building in itself has to be a safe building.
So if there's a class going on and there's a young resident in this development and they want to bring their school buddy to a class that takes place after school, but they're not a resident of that, but they both go to Spring Hill Elementary School, that doesn't happen. Is that my understanding?
That's a possibility that it might not happen. That would be the management company who we have managing it will have to decide that. But like I said, the facility is built for the people who live in the building. And I would think if we were going to have a class, we would fill that class up with kids who live in the housing there before we'd ever invite anybody else in. And I think, in my opinion, it will be very rare that anyone else will ever come to a meeting there, because most of the classes will be for kids who live in that facility. We'll try to meet their needs first.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, you have 9 minutes left. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Is there members of the public that would like to testify on this case? In the matter of case 2012-036, anyone else who wishes to testify? Okay. The petitioner's representative has 9 minutes left. Is there anything else that you would like to come forward and say? Okay. Okay, seeing and hearing none, the public hearing on 2012-036 is closed. What is the wish of the commission? May we have a motion to approve? Commissioner approves.
In the case of 2012-036, a conditional use to allow a privately owned recreational center clubhouse for Trailside Heights, a multifamily residential development in an R-3 SL residential district. I move to approve with the department's recommendation found on page 7 and 8.
Okay. Thank you very much. This motion has been seconded by Commissioner Parks. May I have some findings of fact? I'm going to get that right. No, you have to do vote first. Findings first.
I guess that's me.
That's you.
All right. The general standards for conditional approval meets the comprehensive development plan, the matter required by Chapter 21.05. The standard is met. It encourages more affordable housing, including home ownership and low-income residents. Has the attractive design, affordable housing is suited for the environment, and it also conforms to the standards that used in this title and regulations promulgated under this title. It would be compatible with existing unplanned land uses in the surrounding neighborhood and with the intent of its use district. And finally, will not have a permanent negative impact on items listed on page 6.
Commissioner Parks, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, sounds good to me. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any objection? Seeing and hearing none, that case is approved. Congratulations. I would like to say that I'm pleased to see this type of development in Southeast Anchorage. Thank you very much for your efforts. In the matter of case 2012-037, the Municipality of Anchorage, the request is the AMAT's amendment to the tip, and I am going to hand the chair to Vice Chair Parks. How do I do that? Right here.
I didn't know I was going to have to do that one. Log out of here. Okay.
Push it back.
She
No, it only works on that computer.
Oh, really? That's kind of a bummer.
It is.
Why is she out of this one?
And that's,
Nah, I forgot that. Huh? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, let me log in for a second. I gotta find mine. Mine's at the bottom. And I guess now we'll hear case number 2012037, Municipality of Anchorage, AMAS Amendment to the TIP. And do we have some staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Just a real quick recap to refresh your memory about what AMATS is. We're the federal agency created to help spend the federal transportation dollars that come into the city. The Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which is that big creature you guys heard just recently, is the 20-year plan, and this is the 4-year plan. This is the one where we actually say what's the exact dollar figure that we have and exactly which projects are we going to spend it on. These are just the federal dollars, that the allocation that we're dealing with. This particular amendment was actually brought to you back, I believe, in November, and the plan was to then move to the Assembly next. In between the time that you folks looked at it and adopted it, and as we were scheduling for the Assembly, the state was told that we would receive more money in 2013, and so we had to take that into account. It's actually about $16 million more in 2013. So it's back before you, and the only two real changes are in the roadway table, which is listed as Table 3, we added more money in 2013 to the Eagle River Road rehabilitation and more money into the Dowling Road Extension West project. Those are the two projects that we're putting that $16 million extra in. Other than that, this is the same creature that you had just recently. Mr. Commissioner Mulcahy did point out that in the memo, or one of the memos that you have, about halfway down, or three-quarters of the way down in the memo, it talks about Table 2, and it says HSIP. One of the documents that you have, and I'm not sure how this error occurred, but one of the documents you have says it deleted 5 projects, and one says deleted 2 projects. The correct number should be deleted 2 projects. That particular table is the Highway Safety Improvement Program. It is a program that is managed by the State of Alaska, DOT, and it's kind of spot intersection improvements around the city. So it should say 2 projects were deleted and 5 new ones were added. 2 projects were deleted, 5 new ones, and it says in one of the memos 5 and 5. So I'm happy to answer more questions, but that is the main difference between what you had before and this. We added more money in 2013 for those 2 road projects I just mentioned. And we're just looking for your thumbs up on this.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the commissioners? Any questions? No questions. And at this point, we'll open up the public hearing for this. The petitioner's representative, which I assume that we have just heard him, and would have 10 minutes. Open hearing on the public testimony, 5 minutes for groups and 3 minutes for individuals. And do we have any testimony on this? Any testimony at all? We'll close the public hearing, and it now rests with the commission. Do I have a motion from anyone in the commission? Mr. Pruse?
In the case of 2012-037, petitioners Municipality of Anchorage, AMAT's amendment to the TIP, and I guess it would be motion to approve the handout, I suppose, I guess that's what we're calling this handout, it shows the changes by table 1, table 2, through table 10.
I had a question, real quick, Mr. Chair. Just for, you may have mentioned this, and I was slow, I had a question for you, I was just slow finding the button. On table 3, the little arrows in A/C, that just means it's accelerating, moving up to the current year, is that the gist of that? Or to the year it's indicating?
Right, through the chair, Commissioner Mulcahy, that AC means advanced construct. It's basically, we know we're going to get an allocation in 2013, but we want to build the project in 2012 or 12 and 11, and so we're borrowing from that year. We know we're going to get it. We're going to use it this year. We won't have that allocation next year, but we'll be able to spend it in 2012.
Accelerating the country. Good. And you're saying it's advanced construct.
Advanced construct.
Any other questions or comment? Do we have any objection to this motion? Oh, findings. Yes, sorry.
All right. Well, the AMAS Policy Committee adopted the 2010-2013 Transportation Improvement Program on November 19, 2009. Since that time, there have been several changes needed to be incorporated with this Transportation Improvement Program to keep the project on schedule and track and ensure the funding needed improvements. So this TIP is a 4-year funding program that prioritizes funding for municipal and state-owned transportation projects which are eligible for federal funding. And this is similar to previous adopted TIPs. The changes have been highlighted, and I guess that's my findings.
Any objections to approving this motion? Motion is approved. And we'll sign off and let Ms. Ishimura come back and take over.
You owe me. That's not my job. That's
it?
What? Be quiet.
I didn't even know I was going to do it, so that's bad.
Where am I?
No.
Yeah, I know where I am, but am I back on? Okay.
Yeah, log out. So you just need to be on it.
All right. We're on to item number H. We have an appearance request from Ron Oliva, regarding the conditional use for Carlick Manor. Mr. Oliva.
Thank you. My name is Ron Oliva. I was here 2 months ago. I believe you know how to spell my last name. I've been here that many times. Unfortunately, I believe I'm allowed 5 minutes.
That is correct.
Okay, and I believe it was on 2 issues, Carlick Manor and the Brother Francis Shelter. I'd like to start with the Brother Francis Shelter, as it's been over a year and we've had goose egg out of any kind of productive changes being made down there on their violation of the conditional use. After 8 years, they came here and said the way we're going to address the traffic problem, the pedestrian crossing, we were going to do something from their response of their goal of 180, capped at 240, and now at 353. They have done nothing except in their newspaper, the Catholic Anchor, of which my wife is a writer, but they put in here so blatantly that January 2012 was the coldest January. The average guest count was 342 compared to 293. They're actually broadcasting their violation of their conditional use blatantly in their paper without addressing anything to do with the overflow impact. And I think Mr. Potter pointed it out to this commission that if you have a runway in an airport and you grant them a certain number of landings, if they expand that, then it changes the situation. This overpopulation draw to the industrial area is wrong. The moral panic that took place because of deaths outside leads to bad public policy, and this commission contributed to that by not holding them accountable. They should have their population reduced, and if there's an issue, and the issue is the negative impact I received from the fire department within 1,500 feet of the shelter and beans was 1,103 calls by the fire department. By the police department, within that radius, that was a current date. I tried to get the current date, but about last year, to the police calls were a grand total of 1,834. Now, you tell me what area in town gets that many calls, and if you were next door, do you think you might experience a little overflow negative impact if they're getting that many calls to that area? Now, something's very, very wrong with not holding them accountable. They have the money to get their own security guard. They have their own money to get a medical staff, because the Bishop's Addict, which is part of Catholic Social Services, makes $300,000 a year profit plus. So I find it appalling that they should not be held accountable and have their population reduced by the mandate of a conditional use until they come into compliance, and that they address not only the crosswalks, the traffic, and the overflow, but basically look for another location, because this is not a proper location. So I think my 2.5 minutes is up on that.
You have 1 minute and 30.
Carlick Manor is a shame. Their first death was one on New Year's. They said in their conditional use that Melinda Freeman, at a salary of over $125,000 a year, said they would be safe and secure, and their medical, mental, physical, and addiction issues would be addressed. On New Year's Day, this man died because he was observed to be intoxicated. They said they'd have professional staff there to watch him, brought him back to his room, checked on him a half hour later, put him back in his bed. And if you call dying in your own vomit dying with dignity, I think something has gone wrong in the municipality of Anchorage, if not in this great state. I think it was protracted assisted suicide. You wouldn't take a military man who was suffering post-traumatic stress syndrome, who was on medication, put him in his room with his sidearm loaded. Would you do that? You wouldn't. Why do you allow these people to be unsupervised? He had a better chance at sleep-off on a concrete floor than he did on Carlick Manor. My point is, no one questioned it. This is a slippery slope to euthanasia. If we all feel good that, oh, he died with dignity, I think this is becoming a sick society, and I think we should do something about it.
Thank you very much. We appreciate, although we may not always agree with you, Mr. Oliva, we appreciate your commitment to your community. Thank you very much.
Do you have any questions? Because I want to hear some action plan, because the Brother Francis Shelter year was up last month.
I don't see any questions from the commissioners. Thank you very much.
Why do I come here? Why do you have citizens come and waste their breath if you're not going to take action? Let's have a conscience and do something.
Thank you for your testimony. We have some reports. I think I covered the items that I wanted to discuss in the work session. Madam Secretary, you have a letter. Did you put this on the agenda? you did not put this on the agenda. Do you have?
I do know that this came in after you closed the public hearing, but Mr. Craig had pointed out that these were the points that he tried to make at the meeting but ran out of time. I don't know how much of it you can consider or not since the public hearing was closed. If he's just clarifying his points, then it shouldn't be an issue. That would be the only statement I'd have.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Are there any comments? All right. Do we have any committee reports? I don't see any. I think we've had, do we have any other further comments on Title 21? Or did we exhaust that conversation in the work session? We did. I believe that you are all in receipt of the memorandum dated March 26 to the Planning and Zoning Commission from Carol Wong regarding the Title 21 rewrite. Does anyone have any questions about this? This is the resolution and the ordinance that was presented to the Anchorage Assembly regarding the schedule for Title 21. It is my understanding that this resolution failed to carry, and I don't have any other additional comments unless other members of the commission do. Rich?
I just wanted to comment that it was a clear attempt to bypass the authority of this commission, which is a charter commission in our Constitution as a municipality, and it was inappropriate. It failed by a large margin, as it should have.
Thank you very much. You said that better than I did. Yes, thank you. All right, any other comments?
Yes.
Yes.
I just wanted to put on the record a concern that I and I think other members of the Commission have about the Title 21 process rewrite proceeding without the benefit of a concurrent and readily accessible land use map. And so I think that we need to continue our discussions with staff and with the administration.
Okay, thank you very much. And we also had a discussion in our work session about finding additional support staff for the commission, and whether that included additional support from the long-term planning department or outside resources. We all acknowledged that there was a need for that. Okay. All right. Any other comments? Okay. May I have a motion for adjournment, please? Commissioner Parks, and seconded by Commissioner Dean. Is there any objection to adjournment? Seeing and hearing none. There we go. Thank you very much.